Fund, David Malpass, former World Bank Group president, Kevin O'Leary, chairman of O'Leary Ventures, and Scott Bessent, founder of Key Square Group. Gentlemen, welcome. O'Leary, I have not seen you in so long. You've been hiding out from me these many weeks. And I want to ask you about all this: more tax credits, more grants, more subsidies, higher taxes across the board, and that's supposed to fix the economy. What do you think about this?
Well, the good news is Harris has started to put policy out there. She's starting to take some level of interview outside of celebrity interviews. And we've learned a little bit in the last 48 hours. I'll tell you what I've gleaned from it. Number one, she stopped advancing in the polls in the counties in the 7 battleground states. And so while she's done very well with the all sugar, no protein strategy of Kumbaya, which I don't blame her for because it brought her right to where she is today, she's got some hard work cut out for her to move men into the camp where she's done so well with women. Can't win without some of those men. And those men are concerned about the economy. They're the breadwinners in many of these homes, as are women. But they're still concerned about the cost of living in Michigan and Pennsylvania, everything else. She also taught us something that I knew from 2019, 2020. When she's forced to do an interview where there are follow-up questions, that's when the verbal soup comes out. And Trump has lots of problems, too. He sometimes runs on too long and he's bombastic. But she's got verbal soup, and that's an issue. And the more she does interviews with real reporters like you, Larry, and others, that's when verbal soup is her enemy.
I'd love to have her.
That's an issue.
I'd love to have her, but she wouldn't come on here. I mean, she even flunked the MSNBC poll interview. But Scott Bessent, I mean, I think Trump... I'm not sure where Kevin O'Leary's gone. We're going to give him a second chance on this. I don't think he did well on that first pass, Scott. I think Trump has been very specific. He was specific at the Economics Club of New York. You were there. I was there. Malpass was there sitting next to me. We were all sitting clustered together. He was very specific, where was it, North Carolina, where he put out this new American industrialization plan with respect to lower tax. All he's saying is you got to produce in the United States. And don't be like John Deere. Don't think you're going to sneak off into Mexico in the dead of night and get a 15% tax rate. But if you stay here in the United States, we'll give you a 15% tax rate, which strikes me as very sensible. What do you think, Scott? I mean, I think Trump has been incredibly specific and detailed about his economic growth plans.
Look, Larry, you're exactly right. President Trump, we know exactly where he stands. The only thing that I agreed with that Vice President Harris said yesterday is we have two fundamentally different choices for the way our economy is going to go. And, you know, today is day 1,344 of Kamala Harris being in office, and everything that I've heard in the past days and weeks is there are no new ideas. There's some new spending, but it's all the same. It's bigger government. It's more subsidies. It's exactly what gave us the big inflation in 21, 22, 23 that persist into 24. Larry, everything she is talking about is inflationary. You know, it is clear, you know, she is incoherent when she talks about economics, and I don't want to be accused of being a misogynist, so I will say Governor Walz is worse. But they clearly have no idea what they're talking about. They've got the same team that did this to the American public for the past 1,344 days, and it's the same policies. She is trying to convince us that she is a moderate, which is what Joe Biden did in 2020. He ran as a moderate, then went hard left, and we know that she is hard left. She's Bernie Sanders.
Let me go.
Bernie Sanders endorsed her policies.
Let me go to Dave Malpass because, first of all, I was very surprised in the MSNBC interview. It was either the interview or it might have been a speech she gave in Pittsburgh. I'm not sure which. On the other hand, she basically said we can't achieve the American dream anymore. I mean, it's a dreadful thing for a politician to say, yeah, but it's just a dreadful thing, okay? If that is true, then she should just hang it up. Now, Trump, on the other hand, is basically saying, I am going to cut your taxes even more It's going to be Trump 2.0, tax cuts 2.0. I'm going to try. I want you to stay here. He's not telling you what to do, where to do it. They're not targeted tax credit. They're not run by the big government socialism, which has flunked time and time again. And he's saying at the same time, and this was interesting, and I thought of you, I believe he was in North Carolina yesterday. Correct me if I'm wrong, producers. He said once again, as he did at the New York Economics Club, as he did at the Republican Convention in Milwaukee, the dollar must be the world's reserve currency. And if people try to stray from that, then I am going to tariff it. He will use tariffs to negotiate ends that may be non-economic or non-trade. But I mean, he's saying, I'm going to cut your taxes. I'm going to give you a strong and stable dollar. Now, that's growth. Private sector growth.
Absolutely. And so she's basically saying, I'm going to raise your taxes and the American dream is gone.
Yes.
So if you're sitting, I'm from Michigan, you know, if you want to manufacture, and they are yearning to manufacture. They're sitting there saying, I'm a manufacturer. I want to do this. They want lower energy prices. They want lower tax rates. And they need the dollar to be stable so that they can make their plans. One of the things that's worst for manufacturers is uncertainty in what's going to happen. She hasn't given any indication. She's falling into the Mitt Romney trap. Remember how he issued a plan that was too long? And people said, you can't do all that.
This thing was 80 pages.
80 pages. So that's the Mitt Romney trap of saying, people look at that and say, A, I don't have time to read that. B, I don't believe you can implement it. And C, it sounds like what you're telling me is the government is riding to rescue me, and I doubt it.
Yeah. You know, Kevin O'Leary, I want to come back to you because I wasn't happy with you on the first round. So we're going to give you another chance at this. Now, look, basically, Trump is saying, I want to rebuild the country. Manufacturing, yes, but not limited to manufacturing, or maybe, let's say, manufacturing writ large, which would include electricity and power, which would also include technologies, advanced technologies, quantum computing, AI, and so forth. He's saying, I'm going to rebuild it. But I want the private sector to rebuild it with private investment, Kevin. On the other hand, Ms. Harris is basically saying, I don't want the private sector. They're all a bunch of greedy rich people, and I can't stand them, and I don't like business. I want the government to pick winners and losers and somehow rebuild America. So you got a clear choice here. You've got private sector incentives versus what Newt Gingrich coined many, many months ago, several years ago for that matter, big government socialism versus free enterprise. I mean, Kevin, the choice couldn't be clearer, and I think the answer couldn't be clearer.
Well, I think you're right. There's two different visions here. Let's make it really simple. If you go with Harris so far from what we've learned, you as a people, as a taxpayer, as a Congress, as a country, are trying to ask the government to pick winners and losers in one or two of the 11 sectors that they think should get supported with these tax incentives. In the case of Trump, by lowering or maintaining the current tax rate, every sector is treated the same. And private capital, like me and millions of others, make our own decisions every day, millions of decisions that determine the outcome of an economy that's already proven over the last 200 years it knows what it's doing because it's still number one.
Yes.
What really disturbed me about the messaging in the last 48 hours that I am vehemently opposed to, our number one export in America is not a product, service, a good, or a technology, or mining, or minerals, or metals. It's the American dream. I live that. Our number one export is the American dream. I don't like anybody, any politician, any leader ever saying that that shouldn't be supported in every way we can. It's not true the American dream is dead. I know it's working. I deal with it every day. I'm the guy that invests in businesses 5 to 500 employees.
Even if she believed it. Even if she, I don't mean to cut off, Kevin, but I want to harp on this point because this is where I really agree with you. Even if in her deepest holistic recesses she believed the American dream is dead, you shouldn't say it. That's not leadership. That's not inspiring. That's not anything. That's like throw you back into the tombstone or some such thing. You follow me? You just don't do that. America has a grand and glorious history of freedom, including economic freedom. All right? That's where I'm going with this.
I agree with you, but she is getting a lot of bipartisan criticism on that statement.
Yes.
The American dream is why people risk their lives to crawl under barbed wire and rivers to come here.
Yes.
We never, ever,
Yes.
ever want to lose that.
I